Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the stream here. I actually don't need my headphones because I'm not talking to anyone tonight. It's just going to be me tonight. How is everybody doing? Um, it's been a while. It's been a while, hasn't it? Absolutely, it's been a while. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Life has been insane the past couple months. And I've been thinking a lot about, just stuff in general, actually. Um, and kind of came to some conclusions about why things have been kind of going the way they've been going. I don't know. Give everybody a couple minutes to come on in here. I just put out a post a couple minutes ago, so hopefully we'll have some people streaming in here in just a little bit. But yeah, uh, it's been it's been rough recently. I won't lie to you guys. The the idea of getting on the stream, one, just it, with life being as crazy as it's been, the idea of getting on the stream has just not even entered my mind most days. Uh, to the point where I'll go like 3 weeks and be like, oh, I haven't streamed at all. I should probably get on that. Um, and there just hasn't really been a lot to talk about. Just gonna drop a couple links here, let people know that I'm streaming right now. Yeah, so it's not all bad though. I am gonna front load with just some stuff that's been bothering me recently because it's pertinent. It's part of the reason why things have been so irregular from me. Why I've been kind of removed from everything and just something that I kind of need to get past. It dawned on me a couple days ago that it has been a year, almost to the date. It was back in late September, early October, that it was a year to the date since the collapse of the Kickstarter campaign. And I had not fully realized just how much that event still bothered me. Kickstarter campaigns don't fall apart for no reason. So yeah, there's some issues there that I thought I'd put behind me that apparently are still bothering me. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as that goes. And also just RPGs in general have been dragging me down lately. I have been playing in a game with my dad and my sister's boyfriend. Those are the play reports that you've seen on my Substack, and that game's fun. I enjoy gaming with them. They're a lot of fun. They do crazy stuff. But recently we haven't been playing. Again, just things have been crazy busy here. My dad's actually had some health issues. I won't go too much into that though. That's just I'm pretty open on the show, but there's some things I just kind of want to keep off of this show, especially when it pertains to people that aren't me. So I'll just leave it at that. My dad's had some health issues, and that has definitely been weighing on me. It's one of the reasons why I'm glad that I'm in North Carolina now, because I am close to my family and it allows me to, be present for things like that. But on a way less serious note, part of the reason why I've been so down on role-playing games is while ShadowDark is fun, it's a good game. I think it's a complete game in, what it is, but it's not the right game for Nighthaven, and it's not the right game for me. And so there's been a lot of consternation on my part as to, ShadowDark is popular, but if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to, create Nighthaven content for ShadowDark, I'm going to have to rework the Nighthaven content for ShadowDark. And then eventually, when I go back to Project Skeleton, I'm going to have to completely rework all this stuff for my own system. Additionally, I'm going to have to build certain things onto ShadowDark to make Nighthaven work. Part of that's black powder rules, part of it is dueling mechanics, and part of it is the domain play. And with all due respect to Kelsey and everyone else at Arcane Library, it's pretty clear that that's not the priority for them. They don't particularly care about that play style, and that's fine. That they don't have to care. It's their game. It's just not going to work for me. So, with that in mind, one of the things I'm going to talk about, kind of at the back half of the stream here, is I'm once again pivoting, and I feel so very flighty and flaky doing this because, I made my grand return, uh, dressed in a suit, and told you all that I was going to be making ShadowDark supplements. But I know that there were a couple of you out there who were genuinely interested in what I had cooking with Project Skeleton. And Project Skeleton has always been the end game for me. That's what I want to do. I want to make my own RPG. So even though ShadowDark is popular, I know it's not right for my game. And all I would be doing is publishing for a system that is popular and having to add on to it. And while there's not a whole lot to ShadowDark, I am not by any means a mechanical expert on ShadowDark. I genuinely don't feel qualified to do the work on ShadowDark that would have to be done to truly make Nighthaven work the way I envision it. So, very long way of saying I am not going to be publishing for ShadowDark. I've got one more convention where I'm signed up specifically to run ShadowDark games. I might even change those games if it's still possible to edit them. I might change my my page games to be. Oh no, never mind. I'm not going to do that because that only gives me 2 months to have a working prototype in place for Project Skeleton, which I am way further than 2 months away from. So, all that being said, I'm going back to Project Skeleton. I am going to be working on that for probably all of 2026, and I will be kickstarting and publishing basically Nighthaven as the first Project Skeleton book. Um, and along with that is going to be kind of a retooling of the line, a reorganization of material. I think I'm going to split the book up, not by district, but by subject matter. So there's going to be kind of like a guide to Nighthaven, a guide to factions, uh, you know, monster compendium, that kind of stuff. That's probably how I'm going to end up splitting things up to accommodate this new approach here. And then, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how Skeleton is going to be published. I'm not going to put out necessarily a Project Skeleton um I'm not going to put out like a Project Skeleton core book. I am going to put out um, a Nighthaven book. Kind of the way that Castles and Crusades does it, where the siege system is just something that they reference within Castles and Crusades. That's what Skeleton is going to be. This is Nighthaven using the Skeleton RPG system. Blah, blah. Enough inside baseball, because there's something else I want to talk about, and this is what Thieves Guild Games official is mentioning here. I went to a convention over the weekend, and it was a ton of fun. The convention is Mythic Con here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Mythic Con used to be called Mace. And when it was called Mace, it was the very first RPG focused convention that I ever went to. And I had lots of fun. That was the first time that I met Shane Hensley. It was also the first time I played Deadlands, was at Mace. I've run some 5e games there, and I have not gotten to go since living in Nashville because it's in November, it's too close to Thanksgiving. And that's the reason why I know, some of you who watch the show are, Long Con fans. That's why I haven't ever gone to Long Con, and why, unless things change, unless this ends up becoming like my full-time job, I probably won't ever go to Long Con, just because it is so close to Thanksgiving, and that's difficult for travel. But I live in Charlotte now. I live 20 minutes from the hotel that Mace or Mythic Con is held in. So this year I made it a priority to go. And part of why I was able to make it a priority is Mythic Con is one of those conventions that gives you free admission if you run 12 or more hours of games. So I ran 3 sessions of ShadowDark. And I think Thieves Guild Games has a pretty good summary here. The con was very fun. It did not ever seem overly crowded, except for the parking lot, but the parking lot of the Hilton University in Charlotte is that's just a disaster in and of itself. Um, the the people who planned that area, and funnily enough, just kind of a weird anecdote about myself. For a time, or my family rather, I don't actually factor into the story at all. This all happened before I was born. Anyway, for a time, my mom actually worked within uh, the city of Charlotte's like urban development office, and while she was there was when they were developing the university area, and uh, she got into arguments with the man's name was Rusty Good, the developer, or the urban planner who planned a lot of Charlotte. There's actually a section of 485 named after him. That's how much he was involved in just kind of the laying out of the city of Charlotte. She got into arguments with him about ways that this area was laid out and designed, and the lack of certain amenities. Although pretty much all of that has gone out the door. There's now like one of everything in the university area, but that's just kind of the urban sprawl of the growing Charlotte area. All of that to say, the con never felt crowded, and Mythic Con is a great small gaming focused convention. That's like it is no frills, just games, and that's what I love about it. Um, it's like North Texas, but in Charlotte, and less of a focus on old school gaming. North Texas is very much specifically designed around old games, and that's by design. That's the way that they want to organize their convention. Or games that are inspired from the old school method of design. Mythic Con is just everything. Whatever you want to run. Uh, I used to run 5e games there. That's what I started running when I started going. I'm sure there were people. I never actually looked at the games to sign up because I was just planning on running my games. I wasn't planning on playing. I don't actually play at many conventions. I try to leave those spots open, and I usually find the games that I want to be in. I'm running a game during those games, so yeah, I let other people fill in those games, and then I just run games. Just try to give more than I take, I guess, is the way to think about it. But I'm sure there were people running first edition AD&D. I'm sure there were people running second edition. There were definitely people running fifth edition. There was Call of Cthulhu going on in the same room that I was running ShadowDark in. I know there were several ShadowDark sessions being run elsewhere at the con. Um, they were running Deadlands, lots of stuff, lots of different games were being run at that convention, and that was really all there was. There were a couple seminars, and not a lot of celebrities, although there were a couple notable ones. I think Baron de Rop was there, if I'm remembering correctly. He was there and he was giving seminars. DM Scotty was there. And of course, Professor Dungeon Master was there. Professor Dungeon Master goes every year. And I was fortunate enough to get to go to lunch with Professor Dungeon Master. And that was really the highlight of my convention. No offense, if anyone who played in one of my games is watching, we had a good time. Yes, we did. We had a great time, in fact. I loved running those games for you. I'll talk about those in just a little bit. But the highlight of my con was getting to take Professor Dungeon Master to Show Mars, another Charlotte institution. This has become a very inside baseball for the city of Charlotte. Uh, it's just where my mind is right now. But I got to take Professor Dungeon Master to Show Mars. He was very generous with his time, and he got to try fried okra for the first time. So, if nothing else, I have that to fall back on. I got Professor Dungeon Master to try fried okra. So, there's that. But we had a great time at lunch, and we didn't really talk business. We talked a little bit of business, but mostly I just wanted to get some time to hang out with him and to thank him for being so generous with his time, and the ways that he's helped me out. If you go back on this channel, you'll see a couple interviews with the professor. Again, you can check out my numbers and see I'm not the biggest player on the block, but he's always been very generous with his time. He's always been very responsive when I reach out to him. For some reason, he seems to tolerate me, like me. I don't know, but we had a great time. And Dan, if you're watching this, I appreciate it. I really do appreciate it. It was the highlight of my con. I had a great time, and I look forward to seeing you at future conventions. Thieves Guild Games. I am probably not going to Asheville in February because I will be going to Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo in January. I know Asheville is not that far, but I would have to stay overnight to go, and that's 2 months in a row with overnight trips. That's time off of work. So unfortunately, I probably won't be able to make it to Mythic Con West. Maybe someday though. because again, Asheville is not that far. So yeah, but yeah, we just kind of talked, um, shot the breeze. I gave him a copy of my book, of course. I hope that he'll review it, but it was just cool to hang out with another creator. Um, it really was something special. Thieves Guild Games, whereabouts in Tennessee are you, if you don't mind me asking? Because I used to live in Nashville. I just moved back from Nashville, so it always annoyed me that Tennessee didn't have like a gaming convention anywhere. I thought Nashville would be great for it. Even Knoxville would be good. Memphis. The trouble with Memphis is it's not finding a space. It's getting people to agree to come to Memphis. But I always thought you could do something cool in the mountains. In Knoxville, even yeah, maybe it would be prohibitively expensive. I never looked into it, but like a gaming convention in Gatlinburg, I think would be wild. That'd be fun. But yeah, Tennessee, I just never found a gaming focused convention. Um, gotcha, gotcha. Memphis and Cleveland. Okay, cool. I've been to both, but yeah, I lived in Nashville for 6 years, so that's cool. It really like it is crazy. The Tennessee needs a gaming convention, but honestly, um, and this is something I noticed living in Tennessee, and part of the reason why I kept doing Rollin' Bones for so long. Tennessee didn't really have like a gaming culture that I could discern. At least Nashville didn't. Um, Here in Charlotte, I know of at least 4 game stores, and I don't mean like yeah, like actual game stores, like table space, board games, RPGs, card games. I know of 4 within 25 minutes of where I live. And if you expand that out to like 40 minutes, you can add like 2 more stores to that. There's a lot of gaming in this area. Uh, in Tennessee, in Nashville, there were 2 stores, and they were both in the same crappy little town that I never wanted to go to. It was way far out of the way of everything, and neither of the stores were the greatest. I found some games to like. I found some games to join in at people's houses. There were people to game with. I had to go looking for them. I don't know what it is about Nashville, and it sounds, from what you're saying, Thieves Guild, that Memphis is similar. I don't know what it is, but there's not like a gaming culture around Tennessee. And I had it in my head that I could be, maybe I can be the guy to build it. Maybe I can start connecting some of these disparate stores that are out in the hinterlands, and talk to these people, um, and see if we can grab a Marriott somewhere. But nothing ever came of it. I didn't do enough work, and uh, believing that I could be the one to unite all the gamers in Tennessee is probably a lot of hubris on my part. But the venue space is there, all throughout Nashville. Even if you went out to, like further than Nashville, even if you went out to, now I'm just completely blanking on, like Mount Juliet. Even if you went out to Mount Juliet, you could host a convention in Mount Juliet. You could host a convention in Jackson, out towards Thieves Guild Games. Uh, you could host, Knoxville. There's all kinds of places where, there's plenty of infrastructure for people to host a gaming convention. It's just the will to organize that sort of thing doesn't seem to be there. Paladin's here. What's up? What's up? Yeah, we got some people trickling in here as we're going. But yeah, the games themselves, I did notice, going back to something that Thieves Guild Games said earlier, there were a lot of no-shows at the tables. I didn't like I said, I didn't play in any games. I don't know what the no-show rate was like for GMs, but I was supposed to have a full game on Saturday night when I ran O Night Divine, my Christmas adventure, and only 3 people ended up showing up. So I guess that was, endemic for the rest of the convention. I think I had one table where actually no, I had 2 tables where everyone showed up. My Friday game and my Saturday morning game. Everyone that was supposed to be there was there. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know, like that. I I have no showed a game at a convention as a player. And I feel like that's, that it's annoying as a GM, especially if you need a specific number of players. It's a little annoying, but it's whatever. People get wrapped up in stuff. People oversleep. I like to run morning games. So I understand if you throw down a little too hard the night before. I understand if you're not going to get up for my 9 o'clock game. Malachi is here. Welcome, welcome. Speaking of conventions, I am going to have the honor of meeting up with Malachi in January, I hope. So yeah, that'll be cool. I always like to meet up with my friends that I've had on the stream or that are in Basic Experts Discord server. It's always cool to see those people in real life. I've had that chance a couple times, and I am looking forward to breaking bread with Malachi as well. Especially, I've never been to Philadelphia or the Philadelphia area, so it'll be a unique experience for me. I'm a Southern boy going to a place that I've been assured is filled with unfriendly people. So we'll find out. But yeah, everyone that I gamed with was courteous. Everyone was cool. There were no incidents. There was no fighting amongst the players. There was no arguing about the rules or anything like that. But like just all in all, a good gaming experience. Everyone behaved themselves. I didn't see any instances of crazy drunken antics. Now I didn't stay very late. I guess I was there till like 11 on Friday and on Saturday. But yeah, I didn't honestly, if anyone was drunk, I didn't know. So I've been to several conventions where there's been crazy drunkenness. I know that's a thing at North Texas. People are usually like behave themselves, but the AfterCon bar scene is kind of a thing at North Texas. It didn't really seem to be a thing at Mythic Con, unless I'm just lame and I didn't stay late enough to catch it. But yeah, everyone was generally well behaved. I guess the only complaints I would have about Mythicon, they don't have much of a dealer's room set up. I'm not much of a shopper at conventions, but I do like to look around. I do like to see if I can find some cool stuff. I did buy something at this con. I will grab it here. This will make this will make the Black Lodge boys happy, especially Nick. I got RuneQuest. I finally picked up RuneQuest Glorantha, the most recent edition, but that that was my dealer's room find there. Looks like Thieves Guild has a story here. My cool story from this year: one of my players Saturday night was a principal in the TV show Six and a few others. Came out middle of the Raven game. Checked him online against my players' names. Cool. Wait, question: was this guy also on Burn Notice, Thieves Guild? Because there's a guy who used to go regularly to one of my to Parker Benner, Kent and Wayne, which is usually like that's my friendly local game store. That's where I go. He was the FBI agent from the first season of Burn Notice. He used to go in that store. I think I haven't seen him there in a long time, but he used to go to that store, and there's like a signed picture of him on the wall. So if it was that guy, he's been around the Charlotte gaming scene for years and years. If it wasn't, though, if it was someone else, then yeah, cool. But yeah, that's awesome. Homeland was another show that he did. Okay, gotcha. Oh, cool. It's always interesting who sits down at your table. Sometimes you don't always know. You always hear the bad side of you don't always know who you're gaming with. Like you find out that someone has a record, or someone does something super messed up. But then sometimes you'll have a situation like that where, oh, hey, like this guy's been on TV. There was a couple sessions. There was a game I was playing in when I lived in Nashville. There was a couple sessions that we played where one of the actors from the show Nashville, he like walked into the coffee shop that our DM worked at and was like, "Hey, I'm looking for a D&D game. Do you know anyone who plays?" And he's like, "Well, I play. Come to my house and we'll, you can join this game." And so he hung out with us a couple nights, and then I guess he got busy, or maybe he thought we were lame. One of the two. It's possible, but yeah, like sometimes just cool people wander into your game when you keep it open. So yeah, I mean that was Mythic Con. There's not a whole lot to get into there. I was surprised at how warmly received O Night Divine was, because O Night Divine is it's an adventure that I was happy with when I released it. I've started reworking it a little bit because I was going to publish it for ShadowDark. I was actually hoping to do that this year. I procrastinated. I got really burnt on doing the work, and it got to the point where deadlines would be way too tight, and I'd be compromising on it again. And there's a lot from that adventure that I want to change. There's a lot of, like artwork that I want to add to it. There's a lot of compromises that I made on that particular adventure. The way it was originally laid out and published. I've told this story a million times, but I laid that adventure out the week of Christmas in Canva, because I did not have Affinity yet. I had not gotten Affinity. I had not learned how to use it. So I jumped in Canva and I laid that original adventure out in Canva. So it's not my best work. It's my first work. Someday I would like to remaster it. I was a little down on the quality of that adventure, but the players loved it. So that gives me some hope that I can bring it back someday and people will enjoy it. Because I've run it for a couple different groups. I've run it for my family. My wife, both my sisters, my mom, and my dad have played O Night Divine, and they seem to enjoy it as much as they could enjoy a role playing game. I mean, like my dad's one of my players right now. He likes role playing games, but the others, it's hit or miss. Usually miss, but they had a good time with it. So it was good to get that feedback. It was good to hear that the people care about uh, that adventure. So yeah. Anyway, that's really all there is to uh, the Mythicon talk. So let's talk a little bit about the future. Let's talk about what I'm working on Substack, and let's talk about this Project Skeleton thing that I'm bringing back. So the last article that I posted on Substack was the GM's Dagger Part 1. And Part 2 will be coming um, probably early next week. I'm going to start working on it tomorrow, and it'll probably be done by early next week. My output has slowed down a little bit on Substack, as it has everywhere, because I've just been super busy with work and super busy with home stuff and also busy kind of pursuing other ventures. I talk about this sometimes on the show, not a lot, but I actually really like to cook and bake, to the point where I'm actually trying to expand my skills enough to potentially enter a baking competition or audition for a baking show. I would love nothing more than to appear on the Great American Baking Show, uh, which is I some of you out there probably don't even know that that exists. It's not just the Great British Baking Show. There's a Great American Baking Show. Unfortunately, it's on the Roku channel, so me and like 10 other people watch it. But it's a baking competition where uh, the judges from Great British Bake Off, Paul Hollywood and Prue Leith, would be judging my baking if I made it on there. So that's something that I've really been working on, is baking. Something else that I've been working on is jujitsu. Uh, I I came on here with Stephen Clement after I think like my second jujitsu class. Yeah, I've continued those. I am well out of my trial period. I am 3 months into, actually almost 4 months into jujitsu, and I still suck. Um, I still get my ass kicked every single time. Um, but I still enjoy the process. And this is something that you could hear me go through when I was talking with Patty, but there really is something essential to kind of like the male experience about like getting your butt kicked over and over again until learn to kick back. And that's something I have always kind of struggled with in my life. Um, there's something, I guess it's genetic because my mom is this way, my sisters are this way. There's something about me where if I don't pick something up relatively quickly, I get super demoralized. We have this joke in my family that whenever we play a new board game, my mom is going to say it's stupid until she starts winning. And that's because now she understands it. Now it's a good game because she understands it. And if she doesn't understand it, it's stupid. That's just kind of the dichotomy that we have. And all of us have done stuff like that. My sisters are very reticent to try new things because they're unfamiliar. And likewise, if I don't catch on to something, if I find that I'm a slow learner at something, I tend to get down on myself. The things that I've done kind of most frequently throughout my life are things that I took to very naturally. The first time I role played, uh, basically the guy who was running the session said, "Dude, you're a natural at this." Like, you immediately went into character. You started thinking about you know how you play the game, and so I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm good at this completely useless thing. I want to keep doing it." Miniature painting. Uh, the first couple miniatures I tried, they don't look good. I still have them. If my camera like focused well on small things, I would show them to you. If you go to my Instagram at Howard_Ryan Gregg, you can see from like 4 years ago or something like that. Uh, there are two miniatures. One of them is actually they're both Minsk and Boo from Baldur's Gate. Uh, but one of them looks like an absolute train wreck, and then the other one looks decent. And that was just kind of my progress over what at that time was about 5 years of miniature painting. But I was competent enough at it to be able to get better as I went. And so, I applied myself to miniature painting. Baking was similar. I picked up baking. I was able to grasp concepts that people sometimes struggle with, and I'm not like an amazing baker. You should have heard me the other night. I made my first puff pastry, and you should have heard me mumbling under my breath trying to roll that pastry out as it was sticking to the counter. My pastry, the actual pastry, not the butter layer, my actual pastry layer was too thin, so the butter was leaking through and sticking. Uh, as all of you who watch this RPG stream know about puff pastry, if your pastry layer is too thin, it will stick to the counter. But even still, even with the struggles, there are aspects of baking that I am good at that keep me going. I failed epically at professional wrestling. Um, it was a nightmare. It was bad. It was really bad. I could have gotten myself hurt. I could have hurt someone else. And I let it go. With more frequency, could I have gotten better? Maybe. But I let it go because I wasn't picking it up well. I was struggling with it. And then along came jujitsu. I was pushed into jujitsu by a man who I have developed a lot of respect and admiration for over the years. Someone I have had on the show before, and that is the one and only Crossface. He really encouraged me to pick up some kind of grappling, and he told me about a jiu-jitsu school in Charlotte where the coach was also trained in catch wrestling, which is his grappling flavor of choice. And so I, tried it out, and guess what? Was not good at it. But it was a little bit different this time. I wasn't good at it, but I didn't feel like anyone was sneering at me for being bad at it. When I started wrestling training, like pro wrestling training, it was in the middle of a big pro wrestling boom. There were a lot of people coming in and out of that class when I started. And so there was this notion that I was a tourist. And it turned out, they were right. I was. Uh, But and that I didn't feel welcome there, even though I was paying money like everyone else. Ostensibly we all had the same goals there to learn how to wrestle. Uh, but my presence was not taken seriously at that pro wrestling school, and I never felt like I had anyone who was like pulling for me there, who was hoping that I got better, including the coach. But that aside, jiu-jitsu was different. The guys that I was training with my first night pulled me aside and said, "Hey, just so you know, everyone's first night goes like that." Uh, my coach has told me over and over again, everyone has been where you are right now. Everyone has struggled with the same things that you're struggling with right now. Uh, just today in my noon class, uh, one of the black belts pulled me aside and was just like, "Hey, it's not a crime to be a white belt. You don't know." And he was talking, yeah, as he was teaching the class. He said to one of the purple belts, "These white belts are just trying to survive, and they don't even know how to do that yet." There's this notion that everyone's been where I've been before, and with enough practice and persistence, they're going to uh, get me to where I am competent, if not good. At least, at- one guy keeps telling me, he's like, "I'm telling you, man, someday someone's going to walk through that door. They're going to lock up with you, and you are absolutely going to annihilate them." And this was after me being annihilated by the 6 different guys that were there. All of them, uh, all of them somewhere between blue and black belt, all upper belts. So I had my ass kicked for an hour straight, and he's just like, "Someday someone's gonna walk through that door, and you are going to annihilate them." And I was just like, "Well, if you say so." Uh, it sure doesn't feel like that right now, but it's been kind of a growth thing for me, having to repeatedly kind of run up against that wall, repeatedly push the boulder up the hill. That's something I have not been able to do really in almost 30 years of living. I'll be 30 in December. Um, and just now I'm getting to where I can get myself in the headspace of, I'm not good at this now, but if I keep working at it, if I keep trying, if I keep applying myself to it, I'll get better at it. And I think maybe I was feeling that way about game design. Um, the I think I actually said this with Patty. It wasn't the response to the Rex Codex Volume 1 that upset me. It was the lack of any response. I wish someone had told me that it sucked, or, you know, 50 people had just piled on me about how garbage it was, because that means 50 people that I don't know had read it. Uh, they'd bought the book, but it was the silence, it was the crickets. That's what got to me. Um, that's that's what hurt me. But as Patty pointed out, that was my first project, my first big project. Um, and there were circumstances around it that made that project really challenging. And those circumstances are not present now. I don't have to deal with anyone but myself. I don't, I don't have any. I don't have a book that's 3/4 of the way finished, but with no art. I have. I'm starting from scratch on this one, So I can just take it in the direction that I need to take it. I can take my time on it. I can work through it, properly playtest it, and uh, put out something that's even better than Volume 1. And that's what I want to do. Like, that's what I'm going to do this time around. And that's what I'm going to do with this stream. I like talking to people. I like having guests. But something that I was experimenting with on Rollin' Bones before I shuttered that was these concept streams where I was going through my vision for Project Skeleton. Project Skeleton's back, and so that's what this is going to be now. I'm going to use these streams twice a month to motivate myself to bring something to you, to talk about Project Skeleton. Sometimes it'll be, play reports once I get some kind of prototype. What I'm going to be doing for the rest of the stream tonight is talking through some of the concepts, especially some of the concepts that have changed. Because as I've had time to let these ideas bounce around my head, I think I've refined them a little bit, and I know that they need further refinement. They need to be tested by the players. And I think I've got the perfect group of people, or perfect groups, I should say, because I've got multiple people in mind who I know can help me with this, who I know will be willing to help me with it. I've got 5 game stores less than an hour from my house where I can run sessions for people of varying backgrounds, people who've never played role-playing games before, or people who've played seemingly every game that's on the shelf in the store. I go to jiu-jitsu 4 times a week. I bake at least once a week, if not multiple times. It's the reps. The reps are what make you better. And so, with Skeleton, with Nighthaven, I need to get my reps in. Unfortunately, even through all of the turmoil and tumult that has come from moving my family to another state, even though it's my home state, it's not ever easy to move states. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on that one, but if anyone's never moved states, just know it's never easy, especially with a family. But I'm in a place now where I'm familiar with the gaming community. I used to be part of it. I could easily get back into it. I know on a personal level, and have known for over a decade, the owner of one of these stores. I'm sure he'd be more than willing to let me run my experiments in his store. And then there's other stores that I can go to and start building those relationships. There's plenty of places for me to get my reps. There's plenty of opportunity for me to refine this thing. I just have to put the time and effort and energy into it and not get upset when I walk into that gaming store and I get Kimora'd by the feedback that someone has about my game. Someone tells me that, hey, this sucks. This isn't fun. It's overly complicated. It's the wrong kind of complicated. It doesn't make any sense, and it's not fun to play. That I take that and I learn from it instead of being like, oh, I don't like getting Kimora'd. I'm not coming back here again. Actually, getting Kimora'd is not the problem. It's getting choked. That's the thing I hate more than anything else. So we'll switch that. Instead of getting rear naked choked and just giving up at the game store, if you can imagine. No, just taking that feedback and getting better. That's what I need to do. And that's what I'm going to do moving forward. And this will be my place to discuss some of that. And if there are friends of mine who, can discuss stuff like that, or, kind of, give me some of their own feedback based on the stories that I tell, add to my experience, then I'll have them on. But for the most part, it's going to be me on the show talking. This is not going to turn into Rollin' Bones again. Rollin' Bones is gone. I regret none of Rollin' Bones. Maybe a couple episodes here or there. Maybe some of the people that I had on the show. You can tell there are episodes where I was bored, or where I had stuff going on and it was bothering me. But I don't regret doing the show. I had a lot of fun doing the show. I got to meet some cool people doing Rollin' Bones. If I had never done Rollin' Bones, I would not have gotten to have lunch with Professor Dungeon Master, because I never would have met him. I would not have gotten to meet people like Levi Combs, one of the greatest guys in gaming. I love Levi. I'm going to see him at Page, and hopefully he and I are going to be able to have a couple drinks, or grab a meal together or something like that. At the very least, I'm going to give him a big old hug and tell him that I missed him, and we'll bro out for a couple minutes at the very least. But I would never have met Levi if I had never done Rollin' Bones. John McGuire, who I'm also probably going to meet at Page, never would have met him if it weren't for Rollin' Bones. I love Hambone. I'm looking forward to meeting him for the first time. That's going to be sick. That's going to be fun. But all that to say, this isn't going to be Rollin' Bones anymore. I put that behind me for a reason. I'm tired of just being the guy who lets other people talk about their... There's no way to say this without sounding me. I want to talk about my stuff. I want to work on my stuff. And, I want to hang out with people who are going to help me with my stuff. And along the way, we'll promote each other. I'm not unwilling to help people out with, what little I have to offer them. I'm not the brightest, I'm not the most influential, but I'm willing to help a friend out. Excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do here. Is we're gonna talk about this project together, and I'm going to show my work, and hopefully having to face you guys who are watching this every couple weeks, twice a month, is going to give me motivation to do something. And if it doesn't, then there's something broken within me, and I need probably need to not be doing this anymore. But moving forward, we're doing this Project Skeleton thing. I'm digging up the skeleton. So let's talk about it. One of the things that people gave me the most positive feedback on was the way that I had designed magic. And I say conceptualized magic. My 3 variations of magic, where one is the wizards who are essentially hacking into magic. Magic being the essentially the essence of creation, the life force of the universe. There are those who hack into it using dirty tricks, who are like wizards. I call them evokers. There are those who devote themselves to the service of a deity and are rewarded with power, with direct access to the life energy of the world. They are the faithful. Those are your clerics. Um, that's a second type of magic. And then the third type, this is kind of the hardest one to describe. But these are the primal uh, magicians. These are the people who kind of attune themselves to the natural flows of the environment inside them and outside of them. So I think of both or all three concepts. Psionics is like this. Um, the key powers that like monks have is like this, and the druids are like this. Uh, Psionics is specifically manipulation of mental energy. Key is of course manipulation of your own body, and then uh, druid magic is manipulation of the environment. But all of these things are done through processes of essentially like patience, meditation, um, becoming one with the energy around you and being able to tap into that energy. It is not performing some kind of ritual or eldritch equation to create or like essentially to steal energy from the world around you. It is not devoting yourself mind, body, and spirit to the service of a deity in exchange for power. It is um, essentially taking the time and effort to attune yourself to the natural flow of power and then being able to redirect it as if you were building a dam across a river. That's how I view magic, and that is not changing because I think that's cool. I've heard from you guys that you think it's cool. Um, it's really the only way that magic makes sense to me is to conceptualize it in that way. It's not going to be spell slots. It's going to be roll to cast. For everything across the board. I'll get more into that later. I'll do another stream going in depth onto magic. The other thing that I really wanted to focus on was moving away from stats. Not that I don't like stats. I understand stats. Stats are good. I want to take a different approach to them. I want to. When I was thinking about this, I remember I was on a walk. I was on a walk uh, at Long Hunter Park in Nashville, and I was thinking about what makes a warrior. Because I was listening to Ranger's Apprentice, and I was listening to the first Ranger's Apprentice book, where it's describing how even though Will has not really found what he is, meant to do in life, he's kind of a listless 15-year-old boy. He's very good at climbing and sneaking, which has made him kind of an ideal candidate for becoming a King's Ranger in the world of Ranger's Apprentice. So he's got these kind of physical these physical traits, aptitudes, these physical aptitudes that make him specifically cut out for Ranger's work. However, he cannot shoot a bow. He has not learned how to shoot a bow. The first time he tries, he really struggles with it. He's very impulsive and very impatient, which are not traits that a ranger desires to have. And he seems to have like trouble focusing on important things around him. And so even though he has these core competencies, it is the crucible of training under the Ranger Halt that makes him what he becomes as the series goes on. So when I was thinking about what a warrior is, as I was listening to this uh, portion of the first book describing the ranger training that Will undergoes under Halt, I was thinking a warrior is someone who probably is physically adept at combat, someone very strong, very quick, very athletic. But there's more to combat than just being athletic. There's being mentally tough, being able to, withstand the sensory overload that is a battlefield. There is actual training with weapons. There is learning how to, move in armor. There's all kinds of things that go into making someone a great warrior. And what it comes down to is your physical attributes and your training. So, how do you represent this in a role playing game? Because I always wanted there to be a chance for someone who is physically, able to do something, they take to it real quickly. Um, Someone who's very athletic, but has never learned how to fight with a sword, picks a sword up off the ground. Does he have a chance to actually use that sword with some level of competence? I want to say yes. Maybe. So I want to give him a chance. However, what about someone who is not at all, physically adept in any way? Just they're born with two left feet. They're not very strong, but somehow they find their way into the profession of being a warrior. Maybe they're an orphan raised by a knight. You have like a guts situation where a child is found on a battlefield and is raised by a mercenary father who doesn't really care if he lives or dies, um, without getting into the other unpleasantness that befalls guts as Berserk unfolds. This kind of weak kid, how do you turn them into a warrior? Practice, 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 practice. And so I wanted a system that would allow someone who's not particularly strong, but maybe is particularly mentally tough or particularly smart, to train themselves to become a warrior. You're not going to be as good as someone who is equally adept, or with equal training, but like with the physical adeptness. That's always going to give them an advantage. But you're able to hold your own. And maybe even you have an edge being stronger in something that they're weak in. I don't feel that role playing games have been able to simulate this very well, just from personal experience. Everything kind of points towards, uh, min maxing if you're uh, in a system where you build characters and, um, just kind of like random combinations of things if you're in a roll for it system. Sorry about that. And a lot of these systems where you roll for it do have some kind of concession where, hey, if you roll a character that's just completely not viable, you can re-roll them. And there's so much focus on, I want this number to be, or I want this stat to be at this specific number. I wanted to kind of take some of that away because I wanted a system where you could completely randomly roll up a character, even randomly roll their class, if you wanted to, and have something viable in that like your character's deficiencies aren't going to immediately get you killed if you play smart, but something that gave you just kind of a just automatically an odd character. Because when you look at characters of fiction that so many people try to emulate when they role play, a lot of them have unusual things about them that make them stand out. Um, there's a lot of heroes who just kind of randomly have talents. One of the ones that immediately comes to mind right now is Gurney Halleck. Gurney Halleck from Dune is a gifted swordsman, but he's also a gifted musician and singer. How do you create Gurney Halleck in a role-playing game? Because so many role-playing games, when you roll up the charisma stat that would make you good at performing, immediately you're like, oh, I'm a bard, not, oh, I'm a warrior, but I can sing really well. And I also think of someone like Croker from the Black Company. Croker's not, he's a soldier. He is in the Black Company, uh, but he's their record keeper and their medic. He fights when he has to, but primarily he is keeping the Chronicles of the Black Company, and he is performing battlefield medicine. That's an interesting kind of character. But if you statted Croker, you would in D&D you'd almost be like, where do I put him? You'd be a fighter, but he's not particularly strong. It's this weird kind of thing where these kinds of quirky oddball characters that make for interesting fiction become impossible in role-playing games. And that's why when you see like Dritz Duwarden statted in the D&D rulebook, it's just so random. Trying to account for all of the stuff that's happened to Dritz, he's got like 5 levels of fighter and then a random dip in barbarian for that time where he was running around caves like a madman, and then he goes into ranger for the rest of his time. That's some that's some weirdness, and I don't particularly I don't like that compromise. So what if this can all be accounted for in the way that we, roll up these characters and envision the characters? Also, what if instead of uh, coming up with backstories, I know, like, we've all been dunking on the backstory players for years, even though like that's how I began. I was someone who wrote backstories for my characters, and of course, the fan fictiony as hell. Uh, everyone creates their precious OC. I like the idea of what RuneQuest does, though, and this is part of the reason why I bought the RuneQuest book. Um, when you're creating a character in RuneQuest, you roll essentially to determine their lineage. Like what is their family known for? Do you have any famous ancestors? Did your character do anything interesting before the game? And these things come with associated perks or associated penalties. It's the hindrances and edges in Savage Worlds is another good example of this. These kind of random little things, and I do prefer them to be random. I don't necessarily like. I like playing Savage Worlds. It's a fun game, but there's a lot of cheesing and min maxing when it comes to edges and hindrances. I think it'd be better if you rolled for them. I think that would make for more interesting characters if you had to roll for stuff like that. And I know like Warhammer Fantasy does that. Warhammer Fantasy, you know, you roll for your profession and there's all these professions listed out. Um, and then like you can end up with you know, injuries that you know, change your stats, or you know, certain things about you can be determined before the game starts just by rolling on charts in Warhammer. Um, and Zweihander too, but we don't talk about Zweihander. It's garbage. So I like those things. And so the idea that I came up with initially was that you would have 3 dice. You would have a d20, which kind of serves as the, you know, this is the random chaos of your choices, and you know, events and circumstances, is represented by the d20. And then you would get to roll an additional dice, either a d4 or a d6, for anything that you are gifted in, whether physically or mentally. Um, you know, these are your natural affinities. You know, you're really good with machinery, so even if you're untrained in fixing a particular kind of machine, you get to add this dice to your roll. And then there'd be another set of dice, another dice that you would roll that would represent your training. And so you would roll these 3 dice and add them together, and that would be your ultimate result. And anything that was opposed, any kind of action with an equal or opposite reaction, like combat, someone would be rolling against you. And then you would be using these rolls to determine the outcome. If there's no active resistance to you, uh, then you would be rolling against like a difficulty class, and probably use you know, ranges like you see in ShadowDark or Castles and Crusades, where you know, a task of this difficulty would require this number or this number or this number. I think 3 dice is a little bit much, though. I don't want a dice pool system. Um, Dice pool systems are a lot for people to keep up with, I've noticed. I don't mind them personally. I don't mind playing Star Wars D6. I like it. Uh, I've got it on my shelf over here. I like that game. That's not necessarily what I want, though. So, what I'm thinking is it's only ever 2 dice. To resolve an action, you are only ever going to roll 2 dice. If you are untrained but have a natural affinity for something, again, we'll use the example of you know, fixing machinery. You don't know how to fix a car, but you know, you're good with your hands, you are mechanically inclined, and there's no one else around here that can help. So you're going to open up the hood of that car and you're going to try and fix this car so that you can get out of here. You would roll a d20, and then you would also roll a d4 or a d6, probably a d6, and then add those results together. If you are trained, so let's take that same example. You have to fix a car, but you are a trained auto mechanic. Instead of rolling 3 dice, you would be able to use your affinity to bump up that dice 1 level from where you would normally be. So it would work a little bit like Savage Worlds, where instead of bumping up the modifier, the more you train in a particular skill, the bigger the dice you roll, up to rolling 2d20. And uh, if you have a natural affinity for something, if you're naturally skilled in an area that overlaps with this particular skill, you get to bump that initial dice up 1. So let's say you start with a D4. You know, your basic training in auto mechanics would be a D4, but you are mechanically inclined. So instead of a D4, you get to roll a D6. And then from there, um, being naturally skilled in certain things would reduce the amount of time you need to train to increase your aptitude, or maybe decrease the DC in rolling to train. That's another thing I want to include is you have to roll to see if you successfully acquire new skills. So now we're looking at a game that is skill focused rather than class focused. But do I want everything to be skill focused? It's okay for there to be individual skills and for players to take, short amounts of time to pick up individual skills. I don't have a problem with that. I do want skills to be packaged together, though, to represent specific professions. And I use profession rather than class, because classes don't port to the real world. And I know we're talking about fantasy games. This isn't going to be some kind of simulation of in the case of Nighthaven, it's not going to be a simulation of 17th century Europe. It's a fantasy game, but classes are kind of a weird way to abstract this idea. It's one of the things I get into when I tell people that barbarian shouldn't be a class. A barbarian, it's the only class that doesn't describe some kind of profession. A barbarian just describes your relationship to civilization. Basically just being, and not even that. The word barbarian just means you're foreign. That's the root of the term. It just meant not Roman, basically, is where that term comes from. And it's wrapped up in basically misconceptions about Conan, is where this conceptual barbarian comes from, and really misconceptions about the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan, because even though Arnold's Conan is not the Conan of Robert E. Howard's books, he's not some kind of like shouty idiot either. He's smarter than reputation would lead you to believe. So that's why, I want to completely get rid of this idea of a barbarian being some kind of class. And so, strictly I want to define these things as professions, and that's what I would call them. The same way that you have professions in Warhammer, or in RuneQuest kind of has classes too. They're not really professions the same way that like Warhammer does. At the same time, I don't particularly care for the idea of like, oh, you were starting out as a rat catcher, or you're a gong farmer. I know that's amusing. It's it's an interesting concept. It's fun to do like once. Like, oh, I clean latrines. That's what a gong farmer is for anyone unfamiliar. I clean public toilets. Yay. Why am I playing this game again? Instead, I prefer characters that already have a little bit of experience under their belt. I am firmly in the camp of a first level fighter is a veteran because that's how they're described in AD&D First Edition. That's what them having starting wealth implies, is that they have done their time, in at least one tour of duty. And based on the amount that you roll, it could be almost as much as like 10 years of combat experience before you're technically a first level fighter. You command troops as if you were a sergeant. So that's how I think of leveled characters. Otherwise, any peasant who picks up a sword is technically a first level fighter. And that's just kind of silly. Malachi in here with the Robin Hood Men in Tights reference. I love it. I love that movie. Leave us alone, Mel Brooks. Man, it is wild to me that they're making Spaceballs 2 in the year of our Lord 2025 when Mel Brooks is literally 100 years old. He will be 100 years old. Mel Brooks could go any day, and yet they are making Spaceballs 2 now. I hope he's already got his scenes in the can. Otherwise, that movie just is going to fall apart. I hope he's already filmed that stuff, just, knowing, hey, I'm 99 years old. Anyway, massive digression. It's wild to me. It's wild to me. The search for more money. Anyway, you have these characters, that have some experience, and so to be a leveled character, you have a profession, and that is going to basically mean that you have certain packages of skills that come with a profession. So when you train in a profession, you're basically bulk training in skills. You could train piecemeal. So if you are a wizard and you want to pick up a little bit of swordsmanship, you can go find a sword master and train, and it'll take a little bit of time, probably a lot of time, especially if you're not physically adept. And maybe you can pick up, a couple dice worth of swordsmanship, just so that I may be out of spells, but I'm not out of ammo, that kind of situation. Although, spell slots aren't a thing, or aren't going to be a thing. But just for practical purposes, you wanna pick up a little bit of swordsmanship. You can do that. Or you can train as a warrior. It'll take you longer. You'll have to devote at least a portion of your life to doing so, because training does not come for free. You're going to have to convince someone to train you. That's probably going to come with, doing favors, some kind of oath of loyalty, or in the case of a fighter, to get that training. If we're sticking on the first level veteran fighter example, somewhere between 5 to 10 years of military service. The U.S. military may not be what it once was, but I believe that they are not currently in the habit of giving people basic training and then just kind of turning them loose among the general public. I believe that when you sign up to join the military, you sign on for at least 5 years, I think, maybe 3 at the very least. I know sometimes you can sign on for like 2 tours at once and end up with like 10 years. I have 2 cousins who enlisted in the Air Force 20 years ago. And I know that when you sign up, it's not just, this is a year, and then after a year, we'll see if you like it. No, you sign up for multiple years. You go through your basic training, and then you are given an assignment, and you know, go to that assignment. Usually, after you get out of basic, you go for more training in a more specialized field. Then you're given an assignment, and you go there. That's the way that I look at professions in role playing games. You are going to be locked in if you opt to train, like if you opt to bulk train these skills, you can do it, and you are now locked into this career path for a given amount of time. And then as you level, basically you'll be locked in with whoever it is that you're leveling under. So let's take this into Nighthaven. To level as a thief, you need to join a gang. You need to join Hawk's Talons, the Headless, or the Knave Syndicate. Okay, so Malachi is saying 4 years is the shortest. Navy is the shortest active at 2, but then 2 is a reservist. So yeah. Like I said, the U.S. military is not in the habit of training civilians and then just kind of turning them loose and going, yeah, you're good now. We taught you how to kill, and now we're just going to not keep you on a leash at all. You can go do whatever you want. No, it is, we are going to teach you this particular set of skills, and now you're going to go fight a war for us, or be ready to fight a war for us should one break out in the event of joining in peacetime. I've been watching a lot of JAG recently, and so getting, I know, like, JAG is pure fiction and pure propaganda, but getting this picture in my mind of what like the peacetime military looked like, because my entire life, pretty much, we've been at war. I was born in 95, but my living memory the entire time has been the GWAT, and then things that have come after Ukraine, our current entanglements in the Middle East, whatever it is that's going on with Iran right now, all of that. This has all been within my lifetime. So, seeing the difference between a peacetime and a wartime military, interesting. But that being said, even in peacetime, you are still sent to maintain equipment. If you're infantry, you train in the event that a war does break out. My high school Bible and philosophy teacher, he was a peacetime military man. He was in the Marine Corps during peacetime, but he joined in the late 80s. So he was taught to, he was trained in the event that he would have to operate a mortar in a war against the Russians. And he was out before Desert Storm. So there was no, he didn't end up like fighting in a war at all. He was in a purely peacetime military, but still the expectation was you are going to be trained in the event that you were needed to fight a war. And, so back with the Nighthaven example. You want to level as a thief, you have to join a gang, or you have to join a thieves guild, or however you want to think about it. And I just listed the 3 most active gangs in Nighthaven. You want to be a fighter, you can join the city guard, you can join a mercenary company, or you can be like part of a foreign military, and that be your background, how you got your fighter training. Wizard, you have been apprenticed to a wizard. To learn more, you have to, go talk to other wizards. Druids, you have to join a grove. All of this is pointing towards, and this is the thing that basically made ShadowDark a non-starter for me. Even though I like ShadowDark, even though I think the mechanics work well, even though I think it's a good game, ShadowDark is not designed, first and foremost, with faction play in mind. Skeleton will be. Skeleton is. To get your training, to be a professional, you have to be networked with other professionals. And what that means is you have kind of a built-in system to work your way up. In Nighthaven, it's going to be defined. The resources will be there for you to define your own hierarchy. So, like the example of Rangers. In Nighthaven, there is the Frontier Company, who are essentially like mountain troops. They are imperial. They're not imperial troops. There's no empire anymore. They are a unit of rangers from various different cities that are now aligned with each other in this power vacuum state that Nighthaven finds itself in. And they patrol the mountains and the wilderness around Nighthaven. Those are your rangers. That's where you get ranger training, is by joining that frontier unit. Or by finding some random hobo in the woods. And then like building your own thing. Or breaking off from the frontier unit and building your own thing. Training is going to involve reputation. Are you the kind of person that the temple is willing to give religious tutelage to so that you can become their champion and become a paladin? Because I think of a paladin as a warrior first who turns to God. So you're a trained warrior, and now you're going to use that training for the betterment of your religion. You're devoting your sword to this god, and you are turning it over to him to be his instrument. So to become a paladin, you have to have a sterling reputation, or you have to develop one. And so that's going to be the big mechanic. I don't want to do experience points necessarily. Instead, I want experience to be earned by reputation. It's not enough to do something. You then have to essentially let people know that you did it. Or if you're someone who operates in the like if you're an assassin or a thief, you have to create a mythos around yourself. If you don't necessarily want to be like, hey, I totally, assassinated that dignitary from a foreign country. That was me. How cool am I? No, you want to create this mythos of, oh, I heard the Red Shadow got him. It was the blue marmoset. He killed him. Something like that. The blue marmoset is a wild name, by the way. But all of these things are built around this idea of reputation. And some of the character classes are going to be directly involved in swaying that reputation. This is where my concept of the bard comes in. Bards are not semi-magical uh, rakes in my mind. Bards, the reason you have a bard is so that you have someone who can go directly to the people to talk about how awesome you are. When your party is headed into town, you send the bard in first to sow the seeds for your arrival, so that as soon as you walk in, people are trying to get you to kiss their babies and throwing their coats on the ground and offering you, the finest of everything. Or the bard is there to spread the reputation of how fearsome you are uh, throughout the town, so that it makes its way over to the camp where the bandits are, that you're trying to root out. uh, you go around talking about how you're an Arizona Ranger and you're after Texas Red, and it won't be long before the story is related to Texas Red, that kind of thing. That's what I want bards to be there for. And of course, a bard would have to embellish certain things, because anyone who's played in an RPG knows oftentimes conflict is resolved in the most wacky, off the wall way. Everyone's flying by the seat of their pants. Um, there's all kinds of crazy things that happen. People, rolling horribly when they should roll well, or rolling well when their backs against the wall. And it's the job of the bard to basically clean up all the details and be like, no, the fighter did not drop his sword in that instance. It was a feint. He dropped his sword on purpose to distract, while he went for his dagger, and then killed the monster while it looked where he threw his sword on purpose. That's what I want from my bards. You are master manipulators, and of course, you can also do this with a cleric. Uh, I like the battle tank uh, healer clerics. I think they're cool. I want there to be multiple different kinds of character classes, though. So, in addition to the bard who rides into town and sows the seeds for the arrival of the party and spreads their legend, I also want the Viking Skald, who stands alongside his fighters and sings battle songs to keep the morale high in the midst of battle. That's cool too. Um, no, Malachi, I know clerics are not heal bots, but they're frontline tanks. They do so much more than just heal. But I want there to be the cleric in plate armor with the mace and the shield, who turns undead and smashes the face in of the skeleton, and then goes over and raises his fallen comrade with his healing magic. I want that guy, but I also want the kind of cleric who can go into town with a fire and brimstone sermon about how their leaders, the noble who rules over this town, is leading you to your ultimate destruction. He is leading you to he's leading you down a path of damnation, and it is only through our God that you can be, that you can achieve salvation from this fate. You must overthrow your. I want that tool too. I want your evangelist clerics as well. Same thing with fighters. Um, I want some versatility with fighters. Yeah, the guy in plate armor with a sword and shield, who runs in and kicks ass. He's cool. So is the master strategist. So is the commander, the general, um, the combat medic. The Apache type fighter who focuses on like hit and run, the skirmisher. These are all different types of fighter that I feel like kind of get lost in the um, specificity of what a fighter is based on the just mechanics that we have at hand in so many role-playing games. And so that's going to be part of it as well, is you're not just a fighter, you have a role. You have a role that makes you part of a unit. There's going to be a distinction between pikemen and officers and musketeers in the Nighthaven Guard. If you become a musketeer, you're not going to be focused on wearing heavy armor and carrying heavy weapons. You're going to be wearing lighter armor. You're going to focus on dueling and firearms. And so you're going to be a little bit more dexterous, a little bit more cunning, and a little bit less frontline, oorah, guns blazing, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to address all of these issues and make a game that makes sense to people, that you can pick up and run relatively quickly. I have done away in my head with this notion of this game needs to be light or this game needs to be crunchy. This game is going to be as complex as it needs to be to get across the ideas that I want to get across. I have said this over and over again. Those of you who watch me or have watched me for years, you've heard me say this a lot, especially recently. The GNS days are done. It's over. We're not doing that anymore. There's not going to be this distinction between crunchy and rule. Like, yes, some games are going to be a little bit lighter. Some games are going to be a little bit crunchier. These things they should not be pursued as ends in and of themselves. It is not inherently virtuous. This is one of the things I don't know if I've ever adequately expressed this to Professor Dungeon Master. This is one of the core things that we disagree on. There is no inherent virtue in having a game that is not, or in having a game that is short. If you can fit all of your rules on, a 2-page spread, like you can basically fit all of the game rules in a single pamphlet, cool. It just better be functional. And in a lot of cases, the biggest offender of this is Morkborg and its various offshoots. A lot of those games aren't. They cut so many corners to make everything fit in the small package that it just doesn't work. That's the primary complaint that people had about index card RPG. And again, Hanker Infernal has been very friendly to me over the years, but I understand it. And what he said to me is basically that index card RPG is like a philosophy book. It's not actually an RPG book. It's meant to be like an interpretation of whatever RPG. That's not how people see it, and that's not how people run games. People will buy that book and think that, I can now run the Hanker Infernal game with this book. And they open it up and find this is not mechanically complete. No, I can't. It's the same thing that Patty talked about with Deathbringer. When you buy these books, you think I can now run the Professor Dungeon Master game, but you can't, because there are things that are missing from Deathbringer that exist in Dan's head, but not on the page. Unfortunately, though, when he runs it, he has access to his own head, of course. When you run it, though, you do not have access to his head. You don't know what he's thinking in these given circumstances, these edge cases that increasingly pop up. So you don't know how he resolves them. And the book's not telling you, because the book was designed to be basically as light on content as possible. It's designed to be like, the size of a small catechism book or something like that. That can fit in your pocket. It's cool if you can do that. It makes for an interesting game, but it has to be mechanically complete. That's what I like so much about ShadowDark. It's short. It's, there's not a lot to that book. It's not a very long book. It's digest size, but it's mechanically complete. You can open up, all you need to do is buy the ShadowDark book, read it, and then you can run ShadowDark. It gives you everything you need. But the reason for this entire stream and this entire rant that I've been on, ShadowDark is meant for a very specific type of minimalist, low resolution simulation. And that's what a game is. A game is a simulation. So that's why, we're taking GNS theory out back and we're giving it the old Geller treatment. Because all games are simulations. That's definitionally what a game is. There's no getting around that. And all games are games. A game can have a narrative, but all games, these games are games, and games are defined by their rules. So you have to care about the rules. There's no getting around that. That's what part 2 of GM's Dagger is going to be about. Why do the rules matter so much? Because the rules are what define your game. They define the limits under which you can act. I want something that's a little bit more high resolution. I want something that's a little bit more complex. There's a certain amount of trade-off that I'm going to have to make where it's going to take people a little bit longer to ramp on the game. That's fine, as long as people can read and understand the rules that I put in the book. There's nothing wrong with GURPS. I've never played GURPS, so I'm not terribly experienced with it. But from what I understand, people who play GURPS all the time can run it with the same speed as people who play these lighter games like Morkborg or Five Torches Deep. It just takes them a little bit longer to get there. Speed is about mastery. It's not about the difficulty of your game. You can run complex games fast if you know what you're doing. How many steps are there between picking up the book and then knowing it well enough to execute it quickly? That's the $1 million question. That's going to be this process of me figuring it out. That being said, this is going to be a crunchier game. Just from the things that I want in it, it's necessarily going to be crunchier. I want it to scale all the way from single adventurers up to armies. So I want to do the full Axe arc. And I want it to be built from the ground up with faction play. These are my goals. And so now we're going to be working in service of these goals and designing Nighthaven in service to these goals. Nighthaven's already designed with these things in mind, at least in my head. Nighthaven is laid out with these concepts in place. But now we have to build a game around it. So that's going to be my challenge moving forward. That's what we're going to be working out here, and that's what I'm going to be taking with me to game stores. Um, I'm thinking that I'm going to have to design certain situations or certain scenarios to test the game's playability. A lot of people talk about the three pillars of role playing: exploration, role play, and combat. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can. Nothing wrong with that framework. Um, so I'm going to have to design exploration scenarios to see, does this game do exploration well? Role play, how does this game function in a role play scenario? And then combat, obviously a battle. How does this game handle one-to-one combat, skirmish level combat, mass combat? So I have my work cut out for me. I have a big project in front of me. I have to eat an elephant. Uh, Fortunately, I've already, taken a couple bites of the elephant. I've thought through some of these things. I just need to start writing up some documents and start getting people to play them. And then refine, and then refine, and then write and refine some more until we get to where we've got something viable that I can bring to people. Because the last thing I want to do is pull a draw steal on people. Draw steal's out now. It's not vaporware. It exists. As I erroneously said a couple streams ago, the game does exist. Colville released it, but I don't want to start asking people for money for a game that doesn't have a name or a central mechanic established already. The name is Skeleton. The core mechanic I already discussed. I'm not going to ask for money yet. Not until there's something that people can play test. Not until I can do what ShadowDark did and release some kind of quick start for people to experiment with. Once I can start, putting out GM packages and giving them to people like my friend Rex Teal, who always expressed interest in this game. I'd love for someone like him to run it. I'd love to take it to one of the 5 game shops within 30 to 40 minutes of my house and run it for each and every one of those people and see what their reactions are and see what kind of feedback I get. And, run it online for people I respect. I really want to know what someone like Basic Expert thinks of it once it's ready. Or someone like Victor. I want to know what Victor would add to it or what, Victor would take out of it. And so that's where we find ourselves now moving forward. And so next time, I will say, I already committed to, 2 streams a month. That's probably going to have to start in January, maybe February, just because of going to Page. December is going to be difficult. And this month might be difficult because, this might be the only stream for this month. And again, it is what it is, but 2 weeks from today is the week of Thanksgiving. I am doing a lot for Thanksgiving this year. Because I like to bake, I am on the hook for 2 desserts and a turkey. So, doing anything like this the week of Thanksgiving, probably not going to work. December, I'm committed to appearing on Jack McCarthy's show. And I'm committed to, my birthday's in December, Christmas is in December. there's all kinds of stuff going on in December. So probably starting in 2026, twice a month. But we'll see. I'll try to do at least one stream in December too, though. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This was very, very rambly. Yeah, Vic would add modern firearms, and that's what I want to see. That's really what I want to hear from Vic is like, does this work? Could you do something with this? Because yeah, I mean it. Vic is a mad genius. I love all of the things that come out of that man's head. Just truly one of the greats. And so, getting his opinion on my game, that's going to be top priority for me. And John, of course, John has developed so many functional, good, quality games just by his lonesome. I definitely, he's raised Atomic Punk, Cowpunchers, Makohitel, and now White Box. So I want to get his read on it. I want Crossface to play it. I love all these guys, and I value their opinions, and I know they're going to give me good feedback. So that's where we find ourselves now. I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. I had a good time. There's going to be a lot less of me hashing out my personal baggage. I just had to get some of that out there for you guys because I've been derelict in getting these streams out. I've not been good about getting content out there, and so I wanted to explain some of what's been going on, and why I've been struggling a lot lately. Just to do like basic stuff that I used to do all the time. But yeah, hopefully we're past that, and hopefully we're on to somewhere where we can move forward. And hopefully this can be like jujitsu for me, where, yeah, I'm going to get my butt kicked a few times, several times. I'm going to get knocked down, and it's going to be on me to, get back up, dust myself off, and get back in there. So yeah, that's where we are now. Appreciate you guys tuning in. This is just the beginning. This is the start of something new. And I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. And by this time in 2026, I'm looking forward to see where things end up. And how this all comes together. So until next time, guys, you all have a good night. Good luck in your games. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And I will see you guys in December.